William Morris, Chapter 7, The Friendship Calculus. One thing I could never get used to in Hollywood was the transactional nature of friendship. The friendships I had made prior to coming out here were born of shared experiences and shared values. We'd stolen our parents' cars together, snuck out of boarding school together, and gotten arrested together. We'd gotten in trouble, covered each other's backs, and discovered our friendships were the only law that mattered. Hollywood was different. A friendship's value was measured only by how much it could do for you. You can't help me at all? Come by my office to meet. There's a future where maybe you can help? We'll grab a coffee before work. We're doing actual business? Okay, let's have lunch. You're someone who can help me for years to come? There's a steakhouse I'd love to take you to. You want to know how you stack up? Check the calendar. You're either a breakfast, dinner, or lunch. I longed for a life full of dinners, but I mostly found myself in an endless series of office meetings that even I could tell were going nowhere. I caught a glimpse of this in my first week at William Morris. This skinny kid from the mailroom with little wire glasses, an agent trainee, would come into my office every day, shut the door, and be like, "What do you got for me? What do you know? You got a hot agent here. What's he into? What's the inside track?" He'd be rubbing his hands together like a parody of himself, but it wasn't a parody. He'd offer up some tidbit of gossip and expect something back. I'd give up nothing because, in truth, I didn't know anything. I didn't know the difference between a producer and a distributor. I didn't know what a director did. I was mostly just struggling to hold in my farts. He lost interest in me pretty quick. But nowhere was the transactional force of Hollywood in greater effect than in the elaborate courting rituals that went into signing new clients. William Morris was desperate for new clients in 1995. Even though it had been a full 20 years, it felt like the company was still reeling from Mike Ovitz's defection to form CAA in 1975. The company had never recovered, and CAA had only gotten more powerful with its charismatic teams of young agents landing bigger and bigger deals for its stable of stars. It was alleged by assistants in the halls of WMA that William Morris had a TV department that was unrivaled. TV keeps the lights on around here, you always heard. I could never verify this because I wasn't interested in TV, but you could see just by looking at our talent roster, we didn't have that many movie stars. We had Bruce Willis and John Travolta and some others, but the bench was not deep enough to consistently package big name projects and sell them to the studios. We needed more stars. There was always pressure to sign more stars. The motion picture department met regularly in small, secretive meetings to update their hit list of high profile actors, actresses, and directors that the agency might try to poach from its competitors. These were people whose careers might be in trouble after a few box office flops, or maybe their primary agent had gone off to rehab, or was getting divorced, or had maybe let their own star wattage outgrow that of their clients. Talent was poachable for all kinds of reasons. But the agency wasn't just poaching unhappy clients. They were also cultivating clients through relationships they had developed at their beach clubs, their training gyms, their chance encounters at the Jamba Juice on Larchmont. This was the part that always grossed me out. It was crass, the idea of buttering up some stranger in hopes you could get their business. How hard do you have to laugh at Edward Norton's stories over fish and chips at the Cat and Fiddle? How much money should you spend on private basketball coaches in hopes of getting the nod to play in Ben Affleck and Matt Damon's weekly pickup game at the Hollywood Y? Did any of this really work? I have no idea, but the success rate never seemed to get in the way of people trying. I had a friend who started dressing in her Sunday finest and literally attending church services so she could network with Vim vendors. Vim vendors? I didn't understand the end game in that one. My boss at one point orchestrated an elaborate trip to Miami Beach to take Andy Garcia deep sea fishing. I had to practically be blood brothers with the dude, our fates sealed in an unholy pact, before I could even ask them to play tennis. If some stranger flew across the country to my hometown to take me on an expensive boondoggle, I'd be more than the usual degree of suspicious. We didn't sign Andy Garcia, but I don't think he was wigged out either. He had done the calculus as well as anyone else. But when the agency did sign someone new, it was a big deal. The email would go out over the internal email system, an email to all, and the agents responsible for reeling in the new client would swagger their way through a victory lap around the halls of the motion picture department, sharing envious high fives with their colleagues. For a big signing that may have been conducted under the cloak of secrecy to prevent other agencies from sabotaging the deal, there would almost always be a welcome reception for the new client. This would be a strategy session where the star would meet with the extended team and hear a presentation on how they were going to execute the plan the agency had already laid out. I remember when they signed Martin Sheen, we got the email, and the whole agency went a little nuts because he was going to come in to meet the very next day. We had to put on a show. I have to admit I was not that impressed, but my boss explained he was huge for our TV department and, as we all knew, TV kept the lights on. My boss, as an agent in the independent film division, was almost always included in these big dog and pony shows. While the motion picture department as a whole at William Morris may have been struggling, the independent film division was the jewel in the crown. We had not only an impressive roster of auteur filmmakers, but we were also offering the promise of greater creative control and ownership of the product. Product was the ugly word back then, today's equivalent to content. It was a compelling pitch that no other agency could really match. I spent the afternoon compiling a list of our team's accomplishments as gift baskets piled up in the offices around us. It was getting near Christmas time, a season where you could see the friendship calculus in full effect. Boxes and tins piled up in certain agents' offices, their clients breathless with thanks for keeping their careers alive. Other agents were busy with their assistants, calculating the various tiers of gift basket that might go out. Do we send wine? Wine and cheese? Or wine, cheese, and foie gras? Fuck that guy, we made his year. He should send us a tub of caviar. I went through my own agonizing calculation to try to figure out how much to spend on a gift for my boss. He was, after all, the most important professional relationship in my life. Do I cough up for a first edition Hemingway? He was a big fan of Papa. On the other hand, I didn't make any money. What kind of gift reflects my deep appreciation for the job, yet also serves as a gentle reminder that we assistants are all totally broke? Ultimately, I decided on the deep green Rego candle that Arnold Rifkin always kept burning in his office. It was aspirational, inside, and also because it was the same candle my mother always had burning for parties in our house growing up. Weirdly sentimental. The next morning I arrived at William Morris my usual 20 minutes late. It was December and the air had gotten crisp and dry. We had 2 buildings on El Camino Drive, and the parking lot for employees was across the way from the giant glass lobby that served as the main entrance to the agency. I had parked and was making my way across the plaza when I saw some assistant, probably from a management company or some big star, teeter up to the entrance in some seriously ungainly heels. She was carrying a wide, cumbersome pallet piled high with gift bags, beautiful Christmassy confections festooned with tissue and gold ribbon and pine cones. She was really struggling, though, and when she got to the double glass doors that opened into the William Morris lobby, it was clear there was no way she could hold the pallet of gifts and still successfully navigate her way into the building. She tried, dancing to one side and then the other, but the William Morris door handle always remained awkwardly out of reach. Inside the glass reception area, you could see busy employees moving this way and that, ignoring the plight of this poor assistant. She was not taking it well, and I could hear her wince in frustration and disgust as if this whole ordeal were somehow beneath her. I know the feeling. But just then a gray-haired man in a work coat and Dickies stepped up the steps behind her. She barely looked at him, just clocked the outfit, and dumped the heavy bundle in his general direction. He had no choice but to catch it in his open arms as the high-heeled assistant reached for the door and marched inside, assuming he would just march in behind her. But suddenly every assistant in that glass room was sprinting across the reception area to help with those gift bags, because that assistant hadn't handed her pallet to some workman. She had handed it to Martin Sheen, currently the most important client on the WMA roster. By that point, I was close enough to catch a glimpse of President Bartlett himself. He just shrugged and laughed as a veritable phalanx of William Morris support staff descended on him, fell to their knees in abject apology, and relieved him of his momentary responsibility as a courier boy. He was pure grace. There was nothing crass or calculated in this dance, and I had to acknowledge that maybe not every interaction in Hollywood was predicated on a calculation of benefits.